The last time you were here, Governor, we had an interesting conversation regarding constitutional timelines, and particularly the provisions of Article 2293. The Senate is alive to what the Constitution requires, and as a result, we have planned that we shall present our reports to the House by the 27th of March, which would be on Thursday, for debate and for consideration, and for the House to take appropriate action. Appropriate action has not been defined in the Constitution, it has not been defined in the PFM, but if you go to the Public Audit Act, you might get some guidelines on what appropriate action should look like. There will be an implementation matrix that entities would be required to come up with, and entities will be required to report back to the House on measures that they've taken to close the issues that remain outstanding in the report of the Auditor General. So I believe that that will, I don't know whether it's a reason why you came with the attorney to your right. I'm not sure whether he has got some missiles for us today, but I'm just saying that so that if you had a brief to raise any objections, we guide him accordingly. So we are still within the constitutional timelines, not just for Kisii, but for the other counties. For that reason, we'll be extremely efficient today because we must ensure that we have enough time for us to prepare the reports and table by the 27th of March. The Auditor General has assessed your responses, and as per your responses, if you are to start with a report on the county executive, the Auditor General had raised 64 issues, or there were 64 paragraphs. Probably one of the longest reports I've seen. I don't know why for 8 billion shillings you should have 64 issues flagged. So we'll also be asking a few questions at some point regarding your internal controls, your internal audit, your audit committees, because if those were functional, there is no reason why you should have 64 issues escalated to the Senate. It is symptomatic of a breakdown of internal controls. Out of the 64, the auditor has advised us that they are satisfied with the responses on 8 issues. On 4, they are partially addressed, and the 4, I think, generally relate to policy issues. You know, those usual things about 1/3 salary, ethnic composition, things that can be achieved progressively. But 52 are not addressed. 52 out of 64. If from the evidence tendered and from the ground visits by the Auditor General, the auditor has told us that 52 are still unaddressed. Those of us who come from the lake, we have a saying that if Omena comes from the lake and tells you that tilapia is sick, you better believe Omena, because they live together in the lake. So if the auditor tells us that 52 issues are unaddressed, we better believe them, because they live with you on the ground, even though they sit in Homa Bay. But remember, all that is South Nyanza. So we will perhaps go through the issues that have been addressed and adopt them. The issues that are not resolved, we probably could sample a few of them, but the job of this committee is not to carry out audit. That job is given constitutionally to the Office of the Auditor General. Our job would be, if the auditor comes and says, since our audit, we believe that the entity has taken certain action, our job would be to adopt that and report to the House that at least 8 issues have been satisfactorily resolved. So what happens to the 52? The 52 must then be dealt with in accordance with the Public Audit Act, which requires that upon adoption of the report of the Senate, that accounting officers will be notified of the resolution of the House, and that they will prepare a report on implementation. And then this committee will be required to follow up on closure of some of those issues. And it is in follow-up that we can then make recommendations on whether the EACC should take up some issues or on whether administrative action or disciplinary action should be taken, perhaps on professionals who have violated the law. I think that's a framework that we'll be adopting to enable us finish this session in good time and to enable us take a report to the House in good time. That will apply to the report of the executive, the report on the receipt of revenue, and the report on the county revenue fund. But generally, a lot of issues still remain unresolved. And so before we get into the specific issues, Governor, do you have an audit committee as a county?
Chairman, yes, we had an audit committee whose time elapsed, I think, late last year. And we have made an advert. People have done the applications. And Chair, as we're talking, we are sure that in a couple of days we'll be having it formally in office. Therefore, it has been there. So it's there, but its time came to an end towards September, October there. Therefore, probably we'll be having it in place after the interviews have been conducted, as it were.
But that means that during the audit, during the presentation of financial statements, they were in office, because I see your statements are signed 30th of September.
But by then, Chair, I think their term had come to an end. Therefore, they weren't all there in by the time the audit was being carried out.
Do you have an internal audit function?
We do.
You have an internal auditor?
Yes.
And you know that an internal auditor is supposed to, the internal audit plan is supposed to be approved by the audit committee. So if you don't have an audit committee, then the internal auditor is basically useless. It means that even internal controls then cannot be effective. Weji, is that the right interpretation?
Chair, you have put it very well. In an event that there are no audit committees in place, the functionality of the internal audit may not have value in terms of that processes. And again, you look in terms of even the internal audit compositions, whether they really do the work plans, in terms of even who, their report goes to where, those really some of the issues which may pose in terms of the risk internal controls. But if internal audit is really vibrant and can work, then there will be a value addition in terms of even the controls.
Governor, when is the last time you came across an internal audit report of the entity?
Chair, last year, I think before their time came to an end, I had a discussion with the whole team, the board, before it came to an end. Therefore, rightly the way the auditors just put it is that including even the director for audit is a member of that committee. But as I've said, an advert had been put, people have been invited for purpose of recruitment, and we are in the process, Mr. Chairman.
There must be someone you have employed in your organization, you're paying a salary, to know that the term of the audit committee is coming to an end. Let's start early planning. Who is that person?
Chair, that's the CEC Finance, who's supposed to know at what time we are supposed to be having this team in place.
Is that the man on your left?
Yes.
We go to the same church. You remember Christ was crucified between two thieves, and one was very unrepentant. Could it be the CEC Finance? CEC, why? I don't expect that the governor would have all these details that this committee is coming to a close. Why are you sleeping on the job? Because that's why we have 64 things here, mundane issues that should not come to the Senate.
Thank you, Chair. I did advise the Public Service Board to proceed and recruit the same. My role is purely advisory to the other end that this has come to an end. I have had a good approval from my Excellency Governor, and Public Service Board are carrying out on that exercise. Thank you, sir.
Do you have a public service board that is fully constituted?
Chair, yes, though the chairman was moved from his position, is now the deputy governor. Therefore, again, in the process, we are recruiting the chairperson, and the secretary was not there before. But the other team, of course, in the absence of the chairman, there is a vice chair and a team that were running the affairs of the county.
Now, Governor, this is rather curious because you are one of those governors who has been very articulate on issues of HR and the size of your wage bill and the need to rationalize it. We have even had a meeting with you. I think you have dramatized the impact of excessive wage bill on the finances of Kisii. You don't have a county public service board that is effective, properly constituted, because without a chair and a secretary, you have no board. Without an audit committee, you have no internal controls, internal audit. Remember the last time we also told you, instead of these task forces, you can use your internal audit and internal functions. I think that was the direction of the court, that the first port of call is internal audit, then the Auditor General. So I'm a bit concerned that institutions of governance are not working in Kisii County. Members, is that my feeling, or that you also get that feeling? Senator Wambua.